Hello there, everybody. It is Laura Cheadle, and this is what is this? Week four? I think this is week 4 of our Fit to Flaunt series. So thank you so much for being here with us. I am thrilled to bring you this week's presenter. Thrilled for a lot of different reasons. Thrilled because she's amazing, but also thrilled on a completely selfish and personal level. Shari Wagner founded Iron Clad Fitness in 2009. And although you might be thinking, yeah, okay, yeah, fitness, whatever. Here's what makes Shari different, what I appreciate so much. Her mission is to help empower people of all shapes, sizes, and physical abilities to unlock their true potential. Through kettlebells, she gained control over, it's the Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, PCOS, eliminated her chronic neck, back, and knee pain, and this is the big one, reversed osteopenia in her spine, and found a strong new mind. She is Denver's most experienced kettlebell instructor, which I'd love to learn more about kettlebells, and if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to try it because it's really fun. She was recognized for her expertise and skill in coaching and was promoted to a team leader position with Dragon's Door prestigious Russian Kettlebell Challenge certification. Which is RKC. She is the only RKC team leader and level 2 certified instructor in the entire Denver metro area. And if you don't live in the Denver metro area, you get her tonight, which is phenomenal. She inspires and supports clients to reclaim their health, to banish physical pain, which is huge as we get older, and to build strength beyond what they think is possible. When she is in training, she loves to hike and bike and knit, and I love this, listen to Rick Springfield, and volunteer with her greyhounds. Yay! So before I bring her on to introduce herself, tell you her story, give you tips about what you can do, and then teach you some proper exercises with proper technique, I'm going to read you, of course, a little section from my book, Flaunt. Drop your cover and reveal your smart, sexy, and spiritual self. And the reason I'm doing this lead-in, I'm reading you the chapter called The Stripper's Nightmare, which is a very comedic chapter. And if you haven't read the book, I use the concepts of burlesque to help you strip down emotionally and to reveal what is hidden at your core. The Stripper's Nightmare is a comedic burlesque routine where everything that possibly can go wrong does go wrong. Like the stripper trips on her dress, her bra hooks get caught in her fishnets and she's stuck. She gets her boa wrapped around her neck and is choking. It's literally a great routine. Her heel gets caught in the hem of her dress, where everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And if you're anything like me, sometimes life is like that. Sometimes we're just cruising along and we're like, yes, I'm young and I'm strong and I'm healthy. And then all of a sudden it's a diagnosis. It's that we just look down and go, whose body is that? Things happen. And so often it catches us by surprise. So that's why I want to do this lead-in. Okay. Despite all the talk about how mistakes are really golden opportunities to learn, who else loves it when things go exactly as planned? Me. It's the best, isn't it? Sometimes I get so in the mode of checking off one box after another, of moving through my day with a frenzied excitement of accomplishment, that I slip into a state of weird paralysis when things go wrong. I know that all the other perfectionists are totally hearing me right now. For me, sometimes I can get so locked up into my own headspace, fixating on how things should have turned out, that I lose track of my goal, my desired outcome, and the fact that there's one more path that leads me there. It's not until I get out of my head, get out of what should be, and drop into my body and figure out what actually is that I'm able to break free and move ahead. If you think about the stripper's nightmare, the classic burlesque routine, that breaks us out of that weird locked up paralysis and it makes us laugh. It reconnects us with our heart and gets our creative juices flowing once again so we can kick it back into high gear, solve all of those pesky, unforeseen problems without missing too many beats, and become the best version of ourselves. And that is exactly what Shari is going to do with us today. So welcome, Shari. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and be part of this whole series. Yeah, I'm just super excited. So I'm just going to kind of get right into things. So I'm sitting here on the floor because I have my camera set up for when I show you some exercises later. So just bear with me here as I'm like little here on the screen. So basically I'm going to talk about all the benefits of strength training for women particularly, and just kind of share my whole passion about strength training, tell you a little bit about my personal story too, and which is really why I'm so passionate about it. So one of the biggest benefits of strength training is that it is truly the way to effectively build muscle in our bodies. Other exercises do build muscle, but not in the same way that strength training does. And so why is muscle important? Well, for one thing, it helps us burn fat when we're basically at rest doing nothing. Our bodies become like a fat burning furnace. And that is literally because of this muscle that we're building. So muscle is more metabolically active than any other type of stuff in our body, whether it be, fat and bones are basically the remaining major things, organs, of course. So, so muscles, aside from burning more fat at rest, they also help support our bones. So if you think about, your skeleton, so if you had no muscle on your skeleton, you would just be like bones, basically. So if you've ever seen those, the Halloween skeletons and stuff, there's nothing holding them up. It's all the muscles that hold us up. So the muscles help support the bones, and they are what helps give our bones strength. So literally the act of holding a weight in any way will help strengthen all of the bones that are sort of in that chain of where I'm holding my weight. So that is one of what I think is the most important things about building muscle and doing so with strength training, is that we can strengthen our bones. So my personal story with this is I was in my early 30s, maybe, I'm not sure, 32 to 35-ish. I was always working out like on again, off again. I never did anything steady with exercise. I was that, classic person who every New Year's would say, that's it, I'm gonna start working out. And about 3 months into it, I'd be bored out of my mind, or I'd be injured. And, or a little bit of both. And, so I just had this pattern of on again, off again. But in my quest of on again at this one particular time, I basically I cared more about aesthetics than any other benefit of exercise. And I think that's part of the reason why I never stuck with it also. But that's a big note. So essentially, the gym that I was going to had a DEXA scan that they were bringing in, a mobile DEXA unit, to measure your body fat and your bone density. And the DEXA scan is known for being like the gold standard of body fat testing, as well as bone density testing. And having a grandmother who had osteoporosis and seeing how brittle her bones were, and I mean literally like her bones would just break from nothing. An aide helping her out of a chair shattered her wrist. So osteoporosis is like a real serious thing here. So, with that, I really wanted to get my bone density tested. My doctor told me I was too young, didn't tell me about the DEXA scan, was talking about the old test of the ankle pinch method, and said it's not really accurate for someone your age anyway. So when I see this DEXA scan come to my gym, I was like, ooh, I'm totally doing it. It was $79, which is like a steal. And I said, that's it, I'm there, I'm doing it. And for me, it was, the aesthetic of what is my accurate body fat percentage, but also, yeah, hey, let's see where I am on the bone density thing. So the test came back with osteopenia, and I was floored. So I had a good friend who was a nurse practitioner for an OBGYN, and she said, you cannot trust a traveling show with this piece of equipment that costs tens of thousands of dollars. There's no way it's accurate. Why didn't you just come to me if you wanted a DEXA scan? And I didn't know I could, otherwise I would have. So she said, please come to me. I will order it up. We'll get you all squared away, and that'll be that. So I go and I get the DEXA scan with her, and my score was actually 2.2 lower than the traveling show. So not only was it accurate, it was like worse. So that was like, oh my gosh, I have osteopenia. And I just kept visioning like my grandmother and her brittle bones and knowing what my future could hold. And, truly you would think that would be enough of an incentive to stick with exercise regularly at that point, but it wasn't, because remember how I said 3 months into it, I was always bored or injured or both. So really it wasn't until many years later, I was about 38, when I found kettlebells. And I just stumbled across it in a really roundabout way. I won't bore you with that story too, but stumbled across it. To me, it was like a very fateful conversation that I had with a neighbor that made me go, oh, I want to look into this. And 3 months goes by, and I'm not injured, and I'm not bored, and I don't even notice the 3 months had gone by. And then 6 months goes by, and I'm not injured, and I'm not bored. And again, I didn't even realize it. It was probably about a year later that I was like, wow, I've been doing something for a solid year. And then I had a follow-up DEXA scan, and my numbers started going up. And basically they tell you that you can't improve your bone density once it's gone. And I'm living proof that that is not true. And I don't know that they truly say that anymore. They definitely used to say that. But I am living proof, and I know other people too who have also reversed their bone density and improved it. And so I improved it so much that it is basically considered gone from my spine. They always test your lumbar spine and your hip. So my lumbar spine is completely normal now. I do still have osteopenia in my hip, but my doctor's latest comment about it was unremarkably changed. Unchanged. Wait, I said that wrong. Remarkably unchanged. That's what she said. So, meaning that it was something to really note how completely steady that number was in my hip. It hadn't gone anywhere. So it hadn't gotten any worse in a really long amount of time. And and that's something really notable too. So she said it's like as good as gone, even though technically you still have it. So I'm totally good with it, because I know that everything that I do with strength training will keep my bones strong. And that's the other thing, is that even if you don't increase your score, you can prevent it from getting worse. So even if someone has osteopenia, they can prevent osteoporosis from happening. And so some of the other mechanisms that allow for this is, again, going back to that metabolically active piece of having muscle on your frame. So metabolically active, your hormones, your blood sugar, all of these processes in your body that are more than just how we burn calories are metabolic processes. So when our hormones are in check and not out of control, then everything else works better. And our hormones help maintain our bone density. So by, and I mean, obviously, age-related things happen to women. It just happens. Your hormones are gonna, gradually go down, and eventually we are going to be in menopause, and we are producing a fraction of what we used to produce. But by maintaining that muscle on our frame, we sort of manage all of that a lot better. And, and truly just exercise in general helps us manage all of those natural changes that are going to happen whether we like it or not. It helps us manage all of it better. Some of the other ways that tie into that are endorphins. So endorphins are feel-good chemicals in our brain. So we have an endorphin release anytime we participate in any type of exercise, but strength training has been released in other forms of exercise. So, you know, we're producing all of these things that help us feel good. And so obviously when we feel better and our hormones are working a little bit better and we're doing all of these great things for our body, well, that's to me like whole body health, basically. So it's body and it's mind. So let's see, what else can I tell you about muscle?
I've got a question that I'm thinking some of the listeners might have too who watch this. How many days a week for how long? Because I know, you know, sometimes people might be thinking, oh my gosh, she must be talking about 7 days a week for 3 hours at a time. And I just want to have you put your recommendations out there so they know really what you did and what it takes.
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, you do not have to work out like that. And this was one of the things that really appealed to me with kettlebells was you can have really efficient workouts in a short amount of time that like get your whole body cardio included. So I'll talk a little bit about like workout structure too, so that I can make some sense of all of this. But basically, you do not need to work out for hours at a day. You don't even need to work out for an hour a day. So I think the sweet spot, and particularly with strength training, I feel like the sweet spot happens at like 3 to 4 times a week. And, you know, 45 minutes is a really good time frame. And that includes warm up and stretching too. So if you have a really well-structured workout, then you can make the most of your time and everything is just efficient and works every part of your body. So some of the ways that you can accomplish that are circuits. So you may have heard of this as HIIT training, HIIT. It's high intensity interval training. And basically in its most simple form, it's a period of work and a period of rest. Repeat for your whole workout. And how much work and how much rest you take really varies. You know, it varies. I always kind of go by how you feel on any given day. To me, that is always like the litmus test for everything. So if you've got tons of energy, maybe you can do a longer work interval and a shorter rest interval. And if you're a little sluggish, then keep the rest longer and the work a little shorter. So always listen to your body. Never push it to the point of A, you don't want to push to muscle failure, and B, you don't want to push to just complete exhaustion, basically. A yoga instructor of mine said this in a way that really resonated with me, and I use this now to explain with workouts, is push yourself to the edge, but not beyond it. And even then, I don't even necessarily always agree with pushing to the edge. Sometimes I feel like that's a little too far. So, you know, sleep is a huge factor in this. If you have not slept well, like last night, you slept really, really poorly, do not push it today. Like really keep things kind of manageable. It doesn't have to be easy, like literally easy, unless you really need it to be easy. But, you know, truly listening to your body and letting that be the guide for everything is kind of the approach that I always take. So, so yeah, 45 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week with strength training. If you wanted to add in a couple of days of cardio in there, you could. I am not a workout 7 days a week kind of person. I don't do it myself. I don't believe in teaching that. I believe the absolute max is 6 days a week, because you need that 1 day of rest at least. But people can be really, really happy with their results without having to do even 6 days a week. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about workout structure too. That's sort of a really good segue into workout structure. So workout structure, think about pushing and pulling movements first. So pushing movements are presses and push-ups. Pulling movements are rows, pull-ups if that's within your wheelhouse, and those are for upper body. Then you have the same with lower body. So a pull movement for the lower body is like a deadlift, or if you know kettlebells, kettlebell swing is considered a pull, or they're hinges, basically. And then the pushing exercises are lunges. And then, of course, you have all of your advanced variations of all of that. So within the push and the pull, upper body, lower body, you're literally working head to toe. So a lot of people then go, well, what about things like bicep curls and tricep extensions and leg extensions and all of that? So those are isolation movements. The movements that I mentioned, the pushing, the pulling, upper and lower, all of those are compound movements. So compound exercises are multi-joint, multi-muscle exercises. They work the largest muscles of your body, and therefore they're very efficient because you work a whole lot of muscles all at once with one exercise versus having to do maybe 3 to hit all of your legs. So that's one of the ways that you can make your workout more efficient, is either eliminate or minimize how many isolation movements you do and maximize the compound movements. So I personally don't do any isolation exercises. I never do bicep curls. I have biceps. I never do bicep curls. Your biceps will work in other exercises. And that is where technique comes into play. But there's more I want to tell you actually about workout structure before we get into technique. So think about your pushing and your pulling movements. If you incorporate one upper body push, one upper body pull, one lower body push, and one lower body pull, you have a well-rounded workout in 4 exercises. Now, if you want, you could throw some cardio in there, or you do them at a pace that gets your heart rate up, and then you get some cardio. So, you know, if you're like me and you hate running and you hate treadmills and all of that, then you would love this kind of workout, because I can't remember the last time I ran or got on a treadmill or an elliptical or any other kind of machine. I cycle for fun, not because I feel like I need to for exercise, and I have been walking a lot lately with this whole pandemic going on just to get me outside, but you know, and that's great, but you don't actually have to do cardio in order to get a really great workout and in order to get your heart rate up and get some cardio going. So moving on to technique. So I'm super passionate about technique because A, that's how we keep ourselves injury proof, or maybe not injury proof, but less injury prone. Okay. You know, injuries can happen, and you work out long enough, meaning like for as many years as I have, and eventually something might come up. You know, you do something, one little slip and boom, you know, you can hurt yourself. I have never had a major injury. I have never had anything that has completely sidelined me. So, you know, when I talk injury, I'm talking a little more on the lines of like tweak. I've never broken or torn anything. But, you know, hey, my shoulder's bugging me. Why is this happening, kind of thing. What I have not had is any neck pain whatsoever, and that is because of the technique. So kind of going back to how I would always get hurt, I used to always, at that 3-month mark, it was always my neck, because I wasn't doing anything properly to know how to protect my neck. And kettlebells is what taught me how to do things properly. And so now, even when I'm teaching dumbbells, I teach using the methods that I learned in kettlebells to help protect all of sort of like the tender areas of our bodies. And the neck tends to be one of those really tender areas. And if you think about it, a lot of us spend a good amount of our day sitting at a computer. We're shoulders forward, yeah, head forward. So we're supporting all of the weight of our head on like 1 vertebrae or 2 vertebrae instead of like really good posture, sitting upright and having the support go basically all the way through our spine. So So when we move with proper technique, yes, we're making ourselves theoretically injury-proof or less injury-prone, let's say, and we're recruiting all of the right muscles for that exercise. So we're getting more out of the exercise. Then on top of it, there's a mental component to it. So when we're focusing on good technique, we're not thinking about all of the bazillion things that are out there in our world that us have to do tomorrow or whatever. We're focused on what we're doing now. And so not only do you have that stress relief of not worrying about everything else and being present in your body, but then just that mental engagement of what we're doing and how we're moving and moving in a proper way, like automatically gives us more mental engagement. And without even thinking, we're forgetting about all those other things going on. So, you know, not only do you kind of have to leave it at the door, but it forces you to leave it at the door, and you don't even realize that you're doing it. Like, it's not necessarily that you have to make a conscious effort. As long as you make a conscious effort on your body and how you're moving in proper form, all that other stuff is going to fall by the wayside no matter what. And let's face it, who doesn't need more stress relief in their life? I know I do, and especially right now, right? Okay, so with that said, let's just get right into it, okay? So I was sitting on my feet, and my feet kind of fell asleep. So let's talk about those 4 big movements that I mentioned. The upper body push, the upper body pull, the lower body push, and the lower body pull. So I'm going to show you one basic exercise for each with dumbbells, okay? You can do these with kettlebells, and I'm showing with dumbbells just because when I teach kettlebells, I really get into it a lot more. There's a lot more nuances to things. There's more of a progression with how to properly pick up kettlebells. But just know that all of these exercises can be done with either. And the way that I'm teaching this is very similar to the way that I teach in kettlebells. There's a few little differences. So our upper body push is a pressing motion. So I hold this a little differently than how you see most dumbbell presses happen. And again, that's my kettlebell training. So I'm starting in what we call the rack position. So when I do my overhead press, I am getting a full range of motion. So oftentimes you see people start here and do this. Well, I don't get that full range of motion. So I'm missing out on opportunity within my joints and getting full engagement of all the muscles, and it's moving my joints in their full range of motion. And one little thing I want to point out at the top, my elbow is locked. You often hear don't lock your joints. Well, if you don't lock your joints, you won't be able to lock your joint. So meaning you won't be able to straighten your elbow if you never straighten your elbow. And your elbow was meant to go all the way straight and all the way bent. So if you work it in that full range of all the way bent and all the way straight, then you'll continue to be able to do that. So this is the overhead press. And 2 things I want to point out is at the top, I'm doing what's called packing my shoulder. So I'm getting into the lat muscle that is in my back. It sort of sits like from my underarm and it wraps all the way around into my spine. They're the biggest muscles in your back. They're like your wings. And those muscles are hugely important to prevent neck pain. And you can notice how I can hold this up here pretty comfortably for a while. And that's because I have a packed shoulder. So one way that you can think about it is just drawing your shoulder blade down into your back pockets. And so my shoulder blade is here, so I'm drawing them down into my back pockets. The other way you can think about it is right here, that the space between your ear and your shoulder, you want space. Whereas if I'm shrugged, I don't have a lot of space. And I'm out of the socket, and I'm using all of the delicate muscles of my neck and my shoulder, and that doesn't feel good to hold it there for any length of time. Whereas here, I can hold it. So the other thing I want to point out is a slow pulling down. So I'm getting an active negative. So I don't just push it up and let it fall down. I'm really losing a lot of opportunity for a lot of muscle engagement that way. So I want to pull into it. And I'm thinking about pulling back down into that lat muscle, and all of the muscles of my arm and my back are working, and shoulder. So that's our upper body push. It's a press, okay? One other little thing technique-wise that I want to point out, I'm just going to keep my dumbbell down there, is in this position, in the overhead position, I want to arch my back moving through this press. I want to tuck my pelvis. Like, you can also think about drawing your rib cage in towards you a bit. And the more tension that you hold in your entire body, the stronger that moving weight is going to be, or you will be. So essentially, you're able to like use all the strength that you already have in your body by simply holding lots of tension through your body as you're doing any of these exercises, okay? So that's our upper body push. So the upper body pull, I like a one-arm row in a supported position. You can do these on a bench, and I'll just show you in a second what that would look like, quasi-look like, since I don't have my bench here. So I pick this weight up, and again, I'm packing my shoulder. And as I pull this weight up, I'm thinking about engaging this lat muscle again. I'm thinking about squeezing my shoulder blades together behind me. So I'm getting retraction and protraction in my shoulder blade at the same time that I'm pulling. And looking at me from the front, I'm keeping my elbow and my forearm tucked into my body. I'm not flaring out, and I'm not like lifting up. So it's sort of like backwards and forwards and up all at the same time. So I kind of think about it like I start here and I'm pulling back and up at the same time, and then I bring it back down. And again, a nice controlled motion. I don't let it fall. I'm not using momentum, okay? So that's my upper body pull. So then my lower body push, I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. So you can either hold one dumbbell by the handle here, or you can hold it on the sides of the dumbbell. And we're going to do squats. So with a squat, again, I'm actively pulling into this. So I pull myself down into it, and then I push up. Now, a lot of times when people see me do a squat, their eyes get kind of wide because I go really low. So this is not a dangerous position to be in. A lot of people have heard over the years that squatting below parallel is bad for your knees. It's only bad for your knees if you have bad knees, basically. Or it's only bad for your knees if it hurts you when you do it. So they're not dangerous to do that way, provided you have the mobility to do it that way. So I have the mobility, I've worked on it a lot, and I have mobility to be here in my squat. So it's perfectly fine for me to do it. It's actually preferable. Studies have proven that squatting below parallel actually recruits more muscles, and there's less shearing forces, as they call it, on your knees when you're moving through that range of motion. So two little technique pointers that I want to point out here is I'm thinking about pushing my knees out to the sides as I'm going through the squat. I don't want to let my knees collapse in. This is a lot of force on the knees, okay? So if you think of aligning your kneecap with like your pinky or second to last toe, that's kind of a good angle to be at. And then how low you go again depends on mobility and whether or not your body's able to do it. So if you round out as you go through the squat, then this is bad. So this is for your back. It's not great for your knees either. And luckily I have a lightweight here. So we want to be really straight in the spine, and I hope you can see that difference. So when I have a very straight spine at the bottom, everything is protected. My back is protected, my knees are protected, my hips are protected. And it takes a lot of mobility in my joints, my hips, my knees, my ankles, and even my thoracic spine, which is basically your whole rib cage. It takes a lot of mobility in those areas of your body to be able to be that low and be straight. And basically, if you're unable to come down with a straight spine and your mobility restricts you, and sometimes you feel like a restriction, then definitely work on mobility, those areas of your body, and then work on getting lower into your squat. Okay, so I said I was going to show you 2 different ways to do this. One is with 2 dumbbells. So you just hold, I kind of have writing against my collarbones, and same thing. I pull into it, and I really think about pushing out of it, and I squeeze my butt at the top. So that is your lower body push. And then your lower body pull is a deadlift. So I'm holding the 2 weights by my sides, again with the shoulder packing, and I'm reaching my butt back behind me. This might look a little like a squat, but really my shins stay vertical here, and my body goes more horizontal. And then again, I push to stand, squeeze my butt at the top. So I reach my butt behind me, push to stand. When I reach my butt behind me, I want to really think about, I'm going to drop one of these, I really want to think about reaching my chest forwards. I don't want to collapse through my shoulders because then my back's going to round. And I also have a little bit of a tilt to my pelvis so that, again, my back doesn't round. So I want to be really straight in the low back and the upper back. And that's my mechanism for a deadlift. Now, just like we talked about in squats, if you can't go as low as I do, then don't. Maybe you're here. As long as you are keeping your shins vertical, your shoulders pushed in the sockets, and your spine straight, you're good. And particularly with the deadlift, shortening up that range of motion, you're not missing out on any of the benefits of the exercise. And that's part of what I love about deadlifts. The other thing I love about deadlifts is, yeah.
I got a question that I'm guessing some of the other viewers might be thinking too. They might be thinking, Shari, that's not a deadlift. A deadlift is with my knees straight locked and hinging forward from the hip. So I was wondering if you could explain why the difference on that deadlift.
Yeah, you are correct. And usually the straighter leg deadlifts are called RDLs. RDL, Romanian deadlifts. I personally, like, my body does not like a straight-legged deadlift. It's like a hamstring thing for me, and this nagging hip problem that I've had that no one's ever been able to figure out, but you're kind of talking more like this. So for me, that like really tweaks out my hamstring. I feel like it's harder to use the legs and the butt when you're straighter. So it's harder to drive from the butt as opposed to here. I'm loaded up. So my hamstrings are loaded and my butt is loaded. And I can really use my butt to stand up. And that's like our power generation. The other reason why I do them this way is kettlebells. So basically, that's how we teach them in kettlebells, because it's a precursor. I didn't get out of kettlebell, but I will. It's a precursor to the kettlebell swing. So the kettlebell swing starts and stops here. Looks a whole lot like the position I was just in, right? And that's what we're doing in our swing. So our swing is essentially like a moving deadlift. So those are the 2 main reasons why I do deadlifts more bent. And truly, all of the people that I have followed, like master instructors, you know, people that I've learned from at certifications, things like that, we all do it bent-legged. And truly because you can usually drive from the butt more. The other thing that I find with a lot of people that I work with is if you're too straight-legged, sometimes you end up pulling from the upper body and not using the lower body. And then the back might not be happy with that. So there's another reason.
No, that's great. And I liked that you mentioned that too, because you did talk about some of the injuries that you used to get and some of the pain that you used to get. And I love on all of those 4 moves, how you have the modification. If you can't squat like this, don't. If you can't, so perfect. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of that. What about the amount of weight that you're using?
Oh, good question. When you're a beginner, it's really like trial and error. I always err on the side of lighter first, but when you're learning that technique and you really get the technique, you can move more weight more easily, kind of automatically. So, it's sort of a hard thing to say where to start because everybody is so different. It really is one of those it depends kinds of questions in a lot of ways. So, I think in general, and since we're speaking mostly to a woman audience here, in my experience, women are a whole lot stronger than we give ourselves credit for. I know I have done that, I don't know how many times in my life, but I can't tell you how many times I've said it as an instructor too, to other people. You are stronger than you give yourself credit for. And usually, I try to not really talk about the weights when I'm training somebody. Like, here, try this. I see how they move and I kind of get an idea of where I think they might be. Try this. Tell me how that feels. And I sort of just ignore, I have numbers written on my kettlebells, so I sort of ignore the numbers that are on there. Just try it. And usually women end up doing more than they think they can do if they get that number out of their head. Or in my case, the numbers are kilos and they don't always know that it's kilos. They think it's pounds. So it's actually 2.2 times heavier than what they think. I get them doing it. They're like, oh my God, I just lifted 12 pounds. I'm like, no, that was 26. So, it's one of those things where kind of what you don't know won't hurt you. But yes, for somebody starting on their own, they need to be aware of where to start. And I say just like start easy and just go up the ladder. And you'll know, like if you can't maintain good form, it's too heavy. And if you can just bang out a ton of reps, and like you don't need any control to make it happen, it's way too light. So you're trying to find that like Goldilocks number. So, not too light, not too heavy, just right. And it also depends on the rep range that you're working within.
And that was my next question is how many reps and how many sets and what do you recommend for people?
Yeah. So generally speaking, sets of 5 are reserved for strength. Sets of 8 to 12 are more for muscle building. That said, like I said, I first said generally speaking. So that said, those are like the textbook guidelines. I have built plenty of muscle working in sets of 5. So, it's like those are just sort of traditionally what we prescribe as trainers. The main thing is you don't want to do too much of the same for too long. And you can use the same tool, like I have been using kettlebells and basically nothing else, for 13 years. And so, you don't have to change up everything literally in terms of all of the tools that you use and the methods, but you want to change up the routine. So, I'll mix in some different exercises, or if I've been doing like 5 sets of 5 for too long, then I'll change it up and I'll go to 3 sets of 8 or 12. So the general sweet spot with that is like 6 to 8 weeks. You want to change up your programming in terms of sets and reps. So, and I think that's sort of, they call it periodization. I think that's the best way to sort of get like an all-around training. So I'll go through periods where I'll work more endurance types of exercises, meaning I'm doing higher repetitions, longer work sets. And specifically when we're talking kettlebells, like kettlebell swings or our cardio-based movement. So that's one of the ones where we get into higher reps sometimes and longer work sets to really get that cardio piece going with endurance. But you're also getting muscle endurance too. So, so I'll do a period of time of endurance, and then I'll do a period of time on strength. And then I'm not doing as much endurance-based things because you kind of can't always have both. And generally speaking, you're training for one or the other. So if you're training for raw strength, you're not doing endurance-based things. And if you're training for endurance, you're not doing strength-based things.
And for people who are thinking, but I don't want to do either strength or endurance, I just want healthy bones.
That's another it depends kind of one. Truly, if you're lifting weights and you're lifting weights in a range that challenges you, you're going to get your healthy bones. It almost doesn't matter which rep range you do. Just know that you do have to change it up because basically it's called the SAID principle, S-A-I-D. It stands for specific adaptations to imposed demands. So the imposed demands are the exercises that we're doing. The specific adaptations are my body built muscle, my body burned fat. And so basically if we're doing the same thing, like same exercises, same rep ranges, same weights for too long, our bodies will make all the adaptations they need to make, and then they're done. So basically you want to keep your body adapting. And that's sort of like the bottom line of it is change it up so that your body can keep adapting. On the flip side of that, you don't want to change it too often because then your body doesn't know what to adapt to. So keeping some consistency for a time period and then changing up your routine, those are the best ways. So, like when I hear people doing a different type of exercise every single day of the week, your body doesn't know what to adapt to. It's got too much input going on that it can't make those adaptations. And specifically with building muscle, you're not going to build muscle if you're doing too many different kinds of exercises. So, for me, things like rows and deadlifts are staples, and squats too. They are staples in my program. Like I do them just about every workout. There's almost never a workout where I don't do some form of a row, a deadlift, and a squat.
Makes sense. And I think as a society, we're a little bit over this, but some people still have that fear of too much muscle. And I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, but women can't really look like a bodybuilder without some extreme stuff. So I was wondering if you could just kind of address how extreme that is. So if anybody does have a fear of that fear is alleviated.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I don't want to get bulky. And the first thing I want to say about that is bulky is in the eyes of the beholder. Some people might look at me and think that I'm too bulky, and other people might look at me and go, she's too skinny. It's all subjective, right? So that said, I know exactly what you mean when you are talking about this. You think about those like classic bodybuilder looks, the people who are competing in bodybuilder competitions, and they're big. They got really large muscles. So on women, it is extraordinarily difficult to get to that level of muscle. Those women have trained in a very specific, very, very, very regimented way, like strict. Like they don't have a normal life because their whole life revolves around training and around food. And, it's not, and it's not something that's sustainable either. Like you can't live and breathe that way all year round. They do that in cycles. And it truly is hard on the body to do those kinds of cycles because they are very extreme in their methods. And the really large women, they usually have some help, if you know what I mean. Some outside help coming in to help them build that kind of muscle because the average woman does not have the hormonal profile to build muscle like a man does. And it all comes down to testosterone, basically. So, with my polycystic ovarian syndrome that you mentioned, that is characterized by having more testosterone than the average woman has. So I feel like I build muscle more easily than the average woman, and I've maintained it. I'm now 51. I've maintained muscle without even really trying to maintain muscle. I mean, part of it's just my routine. I do my routine and I know what to do. But, and I'm consistent. That's part of it too. But to me, it's sort of a blessing in disguise about having PCOS, is that because I produce more testosterone, I can build and maintain muscle a little more than the average woman can. But it's all genetics. So how much muscle someone builds and what their body shape ends up being, it's so many factors. There's genetics, there's hormones, there's sleep, there's water, there's food, there's stress, there's how you're lifting. I mean, so many things affect that. And, but in general, to really answer your question in a very basic way, most women just are not able to end up looking like that because it takes, I don't even know what it takes because I've never done a bodybuilding competition, but from what I've heard, you're eating like chicken and broccoli and you're working out 3 hours a day, and your trainer's on you about, why didn't you do this? It is like strict, regimented, and it's truly not a healthy way to be. A lot of the women that I know that have done competitions have gotten out of it because they've developed eating disorders as a result. And I'm not trying to poo-poo anybody, because there are certainly people who can do it with balance and keep a healthy mindset about it, but there's a lot who can't also. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Thank you for that. And then people who are watching this and are thinking, yes, I need to learn more. Where can they find more out about you? I know you do real in-person stuff, at least you will again when COVID is over. And do you have any online options for people who might not be in the Denver area?
Yes. So you can reach me at, my website is ironcladfit.com. It's IRONCLADFIT.com. You can reach me at Shari at ironcladfit.com, and that is SHARI. Though even if you spell it wrong, it should still get to me if the web gods are working for me. So that's how to contact me, or you can reach me at 720-900-4766, phone or text. I do offer online training. I actually offered online training prior to COVID-19. I've been doing that for about 2 years now. And this sort of threw me into more online training. So now I offer, I previously only had basically like a personal training program online. And now I'm also doing live stream Zoom classes to replace the in-person classes that I had before. So all of my classes are in Mountain Time, and you can find the schedule of classes on the schedule page of my website. So yeah, if, sometimes it feels like if, but when we get back to in-person training, you can train in person with me in Denver, either for classes or for personal training, and then both online. And truly the online classes have been pretty popular, that I foresee maintaining some level of online classes long after I'm back to in-person training. I just don't know exactly what that schedule is going to look like yet.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that. And that's also what I love so much about this whole Fit to Flaunt challenge. People who are curious, you can watch this and you can see, oh, this isn't scary. This is easy. And you saw me ask Shari my questions, and you could hopefully see her form and be like, yeah, I can do that. Even if you're doing it without weights, it's so accessible, and you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to, it's so easy. So, like I said at the beginning, I would love to do more kettlebells. I've done weights and I've played around with kettlebells, but wow, how fun and how exciting. And it's always so good to try something new. So I hope other people are having the same reaction. I'm sure they are, that I am. And are like, Shari, you were awesome. 4 exercises. That's perfect. I want to train with you.
Yeah. I would love for people to reach out with questions that they have about anything that I've covered tonight, or if you have questions about my training methods and all of that. I am a huge believer in start where you are. Nobody starts at point D. We all have to start at point A, and then we build to point D, and we do that in whatever time our bodies allow for and our minds. So I'm not a drill instructor type of trainer. I encourage people to push themselves, but that word push themselves is like, it's a tricky one because it has so many negative connotations sometimes, and it's not in a negative way. It's in an empowering, positive way. And, I truly believe that being strong is empowering. It has truly changed me in so many ways. I've been able to stand up for myself better in ways that I never had before. I always say I used to be a human doormat, and now I'm not. I have boundaries, and I keep them, and I honor myself for that. And I truly believe that it was strength training that brought me to that point. I always say, I dare you to lift something really heavy over your head and not feel like you just conquered the world. So,
Yes.
I would love for people to reach out to me that way. I do offer a free class for your first class. And what I'm going to do is, for any viewers of this series of yours, I'm going to give you a free week of classes. And that you can come to as many as you want. So you would need to contact me directly for that, because I don't have that out on my website. But you would, you contact me, I'll totally set you up on everything you need to be squared away for a week of classes.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much for that. Listeners, viewers, take that. I think that's amazing. And I love what Shari said about the physical emotional transition. It's more than just, I'm holding weight above my head. It's, yes, I am holding this, and I can hold, conflict, and I can hold boundaries, and I can hold everything else, because I can do it physically. I can also do it emotionally and mentally. And that just kind of ties that back around to how I opened this with the whole, stripper's nightmare, where everything is going wrong and you're just struggling to keep up. When you strength train, when you learn proper technique and proper form, it kind of puts you one step ahead. Instead of always being like, oh, now I have to deal with this. Oh, now I have to deal with, oh, now you've got it. You've got your base. You've got your core, like Shari was talking about, pulling it in and being strong and holding it and keeping that tension. That's what this allows you to do. So whatever happens in your life, even if it's not osteopenia or PCOS or anything physical, even if it's a divorce or aging parents or, problems with your kids or anything else, if you can hold it physically, you can hold it mentally and emotionally as well. So I am absolutely a believer in that.
Yeah, I am too. You said that so beautifully.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for showing that technique and those 4 exercises, because what I would encourage everybody who's watching this, even without weights, just kind of go walk yourself through some of those and feel where you're at. Get to know your body. Step 1, then reach out to Shari. Do your free week of classes. What do you have to lose? Nothing. It's going to be amazing. And trust me, I do know it feels good. So Shari, thank you. And if there's any closing words, go ahead and do that. And if not, we'll just sign off.
I think we covered everything. My only closing words would be thanking you once again for inviting me to be part of this, and I can't wait to check out some of the other people's sessions too.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and everybody listening, join us again next week. Have an amazing week, and happy quarantine. Bye.